Hi guys, so for my third post I wanted to do a video after looking over the PBL design presentation and after discussing with my group. I feel like a lot of us said that it's something that everyone wants to do more of, but implementing it can be really difficult, especially with all the different types of rooms that everyone has and different types of students. I have a self-contained ED room, so I can definitely be guilty of not wanting to try new things outside of my comfort zone and outside of my students' comfort zones as well. They thrive on like routine and structure and knowing what's coming next. So sometimes I will keep a lot of the lessons the same just so that it's what they're used to and they know what's coming next and how to do it. But they're still not as independent as I would like them to be. So after looking at the PBL presentation, I've been trying to make lessons more hands-on and project-like. But I do have younger students, so it can be difficult, especially with their additional needs. But we're currently working on geometry and math, so I looked up some easier ways to kind of let my students go and explore shapes and just see what they would come up with. I brought in toothpicks and marshmallows, something that's so simple, and had them practice making 2D and 3D shapes. I was honestly concerned that some of the items would get thrown across the room or someone would break another student's shape after they built it, because a lot of times my students will get upset, if someone makes something and they didn't make it, and then they'll break it to kind of get even or whatever. But everything went great. They were so engaged and they did more than I had expected, which is rare for my kids because a lot of times they just want to know that they did it right and they're done. One student made a cube and he also made a pyramid and he put them on top and he knew their names and he said I put them together and it looks like a house. And I mean, I was amazed because he's one of my lower students. So for him to independently do that up with that on his own was awesome. I gave them a list of shapes on a piece of paper and I had walked around to help, but overall they were pretty independent. When we did a worksheet like this the week before, they needed a lot of prompting and support, but when we did just the toothpicks and the marshmallows and they did on their own, they didn't need as much support. And when I look back, we didn't talk about putting a pyramid on top of a cube and making a house, and that's something that he did on his own, and then everyone else talked about it, and so it brought up things that I wouldn't have even discussed if I wouldn't have done the lesson this way. I know this is just like a very small scale of PBL and just like a very, very small part of it, but it really showed me that I need to let go more and let my students figure things out on their own instead of just telling them or showing them how to do everything. I want to somehow go off of this student's example and possibly have them like build his own neighborhood with the 3D shapes or really just anything, a robot, whatever, and we're talking about doing that next week. And then counting up how many shapes are in it. Like they've done worksheets where, okay, there's a flat robot on the piece of paper and you count how many shapes, but having them do it themselves and create their own item and then count the shapes is so much more important than just seeing it on a piece of paper and counting it. So I think that'll be really exciting to see. It was definitely, for all of us, a learning experience. I have trouble letting them just have that unstructured time almost, even though it was learning, and I guess I have to realize that it still is structured and just making it so that they know the expectations versus just here you go guys and start your lesson. But it really made me think about all the components of PBL and how I can put them in my room better. When reading through the presentation, it makes sense. I get why it works and why it's so much more beneficial than me just talking to them about things and having them work through it on their own. But implementing has always been very difficult for me, and I am, like I said, guilty of being nervous of trying new things. But after looking through the presentation and the lesson with my students, I really want to try and continue this and try new things. So if you have any other ideas for kindergarten and first, just any projects that have worked that are simple but that they can get into and learn, let me know. Thanks.